Have you ever unlocked a door thinking you were stepping into your own life and found someone else's story playing out in your living room? That's exactly what happened to me last Friday. I'll never forget the sickening jolt through my chest when I rounded the corner of our second-floor hallway and saw him, my husband of 8 years, kneeling before a woman I'd never met, holding her hand and murmuring words so intimate they stole the air from my lungs. I'd returned early from that client meeting in Portland, convinced I could surprise him with tickets to the Broadway show he'd been craving. My phone had died halfway through the drive home, so I let myself in with our spare key and padded upstairs, rehearsing the big reveal in my head. Maybe I'd clear my throat and watch his eyes light up. Maybe he'd leap up and embrace me, squeezing until I squealed in delight. That was the fantasy I carried up the stairs. Instead, I froze in the hallway, heart slamming against my ribs like a panic-stricken bird. The room was half lit by the bedside lamp, its soft glow illuminating 2 empty champagne flutes on the nightstand and a scattering of hotel room keys on the dresser. My suitcase lay, forgotten at the foot of the bed, half unzipped, clothes spilling out like betraying clues. On the bed, my husband, Mark, knelt before her, a dark-haired woman in a crisp blouse and pencil skirt, her eyes brimming with tears as he slipped a ring onto her finger. "My love," he whispered, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "My true partner. You've made the city my home." I watched, rooted to the spot, as confusion warred with rage. "True partner." I mouthed, words like acid on my tongue. The woman looked up, startled, meeting my gaze in the mirror. Across the room, her eyes widened, fear and guilt flickering behind them. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but he stood, smoothing his clothes, positioning himself between me and her. "Sarah," he said, voice calm, almost gentle. "You're home early." My suitcase fell to the floor with a thud that sounded to me like the shattering of everything I believed. I stepped forward, each movement numb, as if I were underwater. "Who is she?" I demanded, voice shaking. He glanced at the woman, his posture tightening, and then back at me. "This is Emily," he said, tone carefully neutral. "My wife." My own blood ran cold. "Your wife," I echoed, swallowing against the lump in my throat. "Here, in our bed." His eyes flicked to me, remorse and resolve colliding in their depths. "Not ours anymore," he said quietly. "This is my home now." It felt like the room spun on its axis. I looked at Emily, shock still etched across her features, and back at him. "You mean to tell me you've been living a double life? Married to me in New York, and married to her here in Chicago?" His jaw clenched. "I didn't plan for you to find out like this," he said. "But yes, I love her. She's my real wife." The words reverberated in my chest, each echo a hammer blow. I gripped the doorframe to keep from falling. "You what?" My mind spun through the photographs on our mantel, the vacations we'd shared, the promises we'd whispered on wedding night. What kind of man did this? What kind of monster orchestrated 2 marriages, 2 homes, 2 families each, completely unaware of the other? Emily sank onto the edge of the bed, wrapping her arms around herself. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to me, voice trembling. He told me you were his ex. He said you'd understand." She looked to him, pleading. "You promised me." He ran a hand through his hair, the practiced ease undone. "I thought I could manage it. I loved you both," he said, and in that moment, I realized I didn't know him at all. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. He sounded desperate, but his words were poison. I backed toward the door, suitcase forgotten, fury igniting around me. "You didn't mean to hurt anyone. You've destroyed 2 lives." I spat. "2." He followed me, the distance between us, charged with betrayal. "Sarah, please," he said, voice rough. "Let me explain." I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "Explain how you could look me in the eye every morning, promise me forever, while making vows to someone else at the same time. My own." Voice sounded foreign, laced with horror. "Explain how I'm supposed to process this?" He closed the gap, reaching out, but I recoiled. I fell in love with her first, he began. We met here, just after law school. We shared dreams, built a life. Then I transferred to New York for work, and I met you. I didn't want to lose either of you, so I thought. I cut him off, voice cracking. That you could keep two wives happy. Keep two lives. Separate? What am I supposed to do with that? My hands trembled, knuckles white as I pressed them to my temples, trying to stem the tide of confusion and shame. Emily stood, her own tears falling freely. She moved toward me, but I sidestepped. Don't, I said, voice hollow. Stay out of this. Her lips quivered. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. He promised me you were happy, you had moved on. I couldn't look at her. Why did both of them feel sorry for me, when only one of them had the audacity to claim he loved me? I swiveled my gaze to him. Is she pregnant? The question burst out before I could stop it. His face paled. No, he said. Thank God, no. Relief and horror collided. I wasn't a consolation prize, but I was the one abandoned. Then why? I whispered. Why do this? He swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the floor. I was greedy, he said bluntly. I wanted both of you. I thought I could. His gaze flitted over me and settled on something behind me, the hallway mirror. In its reflection I saw my own shattered silhouette, the thing I'd become. A wife betrayed, standing in a hotel room that felt more like a cage. I realized I should have screamed, demanded he choose, marched out with my dignity intact. Instead, I felt the world tilt, as tears slid down my cheeks. I closed my eyes, fighting the sob that threatened to break free. I wanted to retreat, to run back. To New York, to the life I thought I had, but that life had been a lie. I need air, I managed voice. Ragged. I backed toward the door, gathered my suitcase, and hauled it over my shoulder, the strap biting into my skin like memory. Without a backward glance, I slipped through the doorway, leaving him and his real wife to their fractured promises. In the corridor, hallway lights flickered over my departure. I walked until the hum of the hotel faded, until the weight of betrayal settled around me like armor. My phone buzzed, his name on. The screen, a string of texts. Sarah, wait. Please talk to me. I silenced it and slipped out into the late evening air, Chicago's skyline blazing behind me. I didn't know where I'd go next, whether back to New York, to my family, to a friend's couch. But one thing crystallized in that moment of escape. I would face whatever came next on my own terms. I would demand answers, demand justice, and demand the truth about who I was before. I could even think of forgiveness. Because the woman in that mirror, my reflection now, fractured, deserved more than half-truths and parallel lives. She deserved the whole story, and I would uncover it, even if it meant tearing down every last wall he'd built between us. I didn't sleep that night. In the narrow hotel room I'd booked, I lay awake on top of the covers, not under them, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, his kneeling, her tears, his whispered vows. By dawn, I felt hollowed out, as though someone had scooped my insides and left me with a brittle shell. I showered in that cramped bathroom, letting the hot water wash away the grime of tears, but it couldn't cleanse the sick dread pooling in my stomach. I knew I couldn't stay. I tossed a change of clothes and my toothbrush into my suitcase, stowed the key card in my wallet, and slipped out without a word. The lobby was empty except for the night clerk, who barely looked up when I handed over the key. I caught sight of my reflection in the polish counter, eyes red, hair damp and plastered to my face, cheeks pale. I almost didn't recognize myself. My first thought had been to call my sister in New York, but I decided against it. I needed space to think, so I hailed a cab and told the driver to take me to Millennium Park. I sat on a bench, overlooking the fountain, the city's skyline shimmering in the morning light, and let the cool air steady me. I pulled out my phone and stared at the messages I hadn't responded to, frantic. Text from Mark, please explain, I can't lose you. An email from my boss wondering where I was. A voicemail from my college roommate checking in. I silenced the notifications. Today my story would unfold on my terms. I needed answers. First, I had to know the extent of his deception. How long had this double life existed? Did he have children here? Did he own property? I tapped Mark Thompson into the rideshare app, my thumb hovering over Chicago Airport. A flight home would cost time I didn't have. Instead, I ordered a latte from the cafe across the street and opened the hotel's Wi-Fi. Login page. I'd left my laptop behind, so I logged into the cloud on my phone and accessed our shared documents, schedules, bills, even our shopping lists. Nothing hinted at a second marriage. But I had his email address, mark.thompson@lawfirm.com, and I had free access to LinkedIn. Over the next hour, I pieced together his professional life, his transfers back and forth between Chicago and New York, project deadlines, conference invitations. Then I stumbled on a wedding announcement buried in months-old posts on the firm's intranet. An excerpt congratulated Mark and Emily on their union in Chicago last June. My breath caught. I tapped the view link, no longer active, but the date was there. 10 months ago. That meant he'd been married to Emily for nearly a year while still living with me, telling me the firm in Chicago was just a branch office. I pulled up my calendar and counted back. Last June, I remembered a trip to my parents for my mother's birthday. Mark flew home early to catch up on prep for a big case. He must have stayed behind. I pressed my palms to my face, tasting bile in my throat. How many times had I wondered why he never met my parents in New York? Why he missed my family gatherings? I swallowed down a sob. My phone buzzed. A rideshare confirmation. I tapped home as my destination, then thought better of it. I wasn't ready for New York. Not yet. I needed to know more about Emily. I searched public records, marriage certificates, property deeds. There it was, the deed to a condo on East Randolph, co-owned by Mark and an E. Campbell. No middle name, but it matched the initials I'd seen in the bank transfer. Good thing Chicago still let people search records online. I copied the address. I booked a car to the Gold Coast neighborhood. When I arrived, I sat in the passenger seat, heart thundering, and stared at the sleek high-rise. I imagined her in that building, on that balcony, believing she was living his only life. A woman looked identical to the Emily I'd glimpsed, same dark hair, tailored suit, hurrying down the sidewalk. I ducked behind the tinted window as the woman entered the lobby. I watched the door close, then slipped out, circling back to the condo's side entrance. I needed to hear her voice, see her face, understand her story beyond the wedding in our bedroom mirror. I knocked at the side door, an unmarked service entrance, and a burly security guard peered through the crack. "Can I help you?" His gaze flicked suspiciously at the package in my hand. A coffee cup from the cafe, half drunk. I'm sorry, I stammered. "Is Emily home?" "I'm Mark's assistant. He asked me to drop off these documents." The guard's brow lifted. "Right." He opened the door, just enough for me to slip in. "Top floor, unit 2304. He pointed down the hallway. "Don't mess around." I nodded, pulse in my ears, footsteps echoing on the marble floor as I approached unit 2304. I stood before the door, hand shaking on the doorknob. On the brass plaque, 2304 Thompson and Campbell. I exhaled and slipped inside. The condo was immaculate. Shadow gray walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, minimalist furniture. A vase of yellow tulips sat on the glass coffee table, fresh. The blinds fluttered. I set the cup of coffee on the table and waited. Moments later, the door opened. Emily stood there, hair neatly pinned, cheeks flushed. She looked at me, an intruder, from head to toe. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice steady but eyes wide. I raised the coffee cup. "For you," I said quietly. "I thought you might need it." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Please," she said, leading me in. "Mark said he hired an assistant." I nodded, sliding off my jacket. "Yes," I said. "He emailed me at 5 a.m., but I couldn't download the files, so I came in person." She led me to the kitchen, where she grabbed a mug. "Thank you," she said, pouring the coffee. She inhaled deeply and set it back on the counter. "I don't Know what to say. I leaned against the counter. I don't want apologies, I said softly. I want to understand you. Her hands shook as she pulled out a chair. I am confused, she began. When I met Mark, he told me his wife had passed away. He said you were his college sweetheart, but that life took you in different directions. I believed him. He moved us here, told me he was finally ready to start a new chapter. Last week, he said he'd handle everything so I could focus on my new job at the firm. She paused, tears welling. I didn't know. I had no idea you existed. My throat tightened. Her pain was real, but so was mine. He married you? I whispered. She nodded, voice breaking. He said the life he had with me was the real one because I was there every day. He said you were distant, busy with your career, that you didn't need him like I did. I closed my eyes. He'd pitted us against each other, rewritten our history to suit his needs. Do you have his ring? I asked. She nodded and retrieved a small box from a drawer. Inside lay a delicate platinum band with our initials and ring date engraved on the inside, a wedding gift we had chosen together in New York. The sight of it in her hands made my stomach twist. He gave you this. She held it out, trembling. I thought it was ours. I reached out and touched the engraving. S+M June 12th, 2015. My wedding date. My ring. He stole our memories, I whispered. She slumped in her chair. He said we'd make new ones. I felt rage and pity war inside me. You deserve truth, I said quietly. But first I need to know is there a child? Her face paled. No, relief and sorrow collided. Thank God, I muttered. We sat in silence, two women betrayed by the same man, linked by love and lies. Finally I stood. I can't stay here, I said. I'm not his assistant. She nodded, tears streaming. What will you do? I shrugged, feeling the weight of decisions ahead. Return to New York, consider divorce, seek counseling, lean on friends. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I needed to meet you to know. I'm not alone. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry. I managed a fragile smile. So am I. I left her condo with the morning light warming my back, suitcase in hand, heart pounding with uncertainty and a fierce determination. Part 2 had given me knowledge and a fellow survivor. Part 3 would demand I face Mark, confront the man who'd built 2 lives from our love, and decide what life I wanted next. And I would do it on my own terms. When I finally stepped through our New York front door late that evening, the weight of 2 cities pressed against my shoulders like tangible bricks. The familiar hum of the apartment, our apartment, felt both comforting and alien. I dropped my suitcase by the door and sank onto the couch, staring at the stack of mail on the side table, bills, takeout menus, birthday cards I'd never opened. Behind me, the lights flickered on in the hallway, and I heard the soft click of his key in the lock. He appeared in the doorway looking drained, the lines around his eyes deepened by days without sleep. He froze when he saw me, suitcase on the couch, tears still glimmering on my cheeks. You're back, he said, voice hushed, as though afraid I might vanish again. You saw her? I nodded once, voice catching. Yes, I met her. He took a hesitant step toward me. I'm sorry you had to do that. I studied him across the soft glow of the living room lamp, my wedding ring glinting on my finger, the one he stole and gifted to her. The same ring that once symbolized our shared vows now felt like a shard of glass against my skin. You lied to me, I said, the words heavy in the quiet room. You built 2 lives, 2 marriages, and you let me walk into one of them blind. He sank onto the armchair across from me, folding his hands in his lap. I didn't know how to stop. I never meant to hurt you. I pressed my palms to my temples, trying to steady my pounding heart. But you did hurt me. You hurt both of us. And I need answers, every detail, before I can even think about what comes next. He exhaled, gaze dropping. Ask me anything. I took a breath, anchoring myself. Why? Why did you do it? He looked up, tears brimming. I'm so ashamed. When I first moved to Chicago, I thought it was temporary. I missed you terribly, but she was there, helping me find my way in that city. We reconnected, and I felt alive again. But then I met you. I felt alive with you, too. I didn't want to choose, so I told myself I could have both. His voice cracked. I was too selfish to let go of either life. Pain lanced through me, but I pressed on. How long did this go on? He ran his hands through his hair. 10 months. We married in June, just months after our wedding here. I arranged for that condo in her name and mine. I booked flights so I could spend weekends with you, weekdays with her. I told her you were my ex-fiancé. You two had broken up. I told you she was a colleague in need. I closed my eyes, the magnitude of his deceit crashing over me like cold waves. And what about the truth? I whispered. When did you plan to tell us? He shook his head miserably. I never had the courage. Every time I thought about it, I froze. I convinced myself I could fix it before you found out. I felt tears spill down my cheeks, but I swallowed hard, refusing to let sobs overtake me. Did you love her? I asked quietly, no accusation, just a raw question. He looked up, eyes haunted. Yes, I loved her, but that love was built on deception. With you it was real. We built a life together, children, friends, routines. I wanted to be honest so many times, but I was terrified of losing both of you. I wiped my cheeks with the back of my hand. So you lost us both instead? His lips trembled. I'm sorry. Silence settled between us, the kind that insists on reckoning. Finally, I stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights that shimmered like scattered stars. I felt emptier than ever. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said softly. I don't know if I want you back in my life. He rose and joined me at the window, close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. I understand, he said. I'll accept whatever you decide. I took a steadying breath and turned to face him. I need time to grieve the life I thought we had, time to figure out who I am without your lies defining me. He nodded, silent tears running down his face. Take all the time you need. I walked past him and climbed the stairs to our bedroom. The photograph above the dresser, our wedding day, smiling beneath an arch of flowers, stared back at me like a relic from another lifetime. I picked it up and cradled it to my chest before tucking it into my suitcase. I packed the rest of my belongings with deliberate care, our favorite blankets, my grandmother's necklace, the journals I'd kept since college. I left place settings on the kitchen table, 2 plates, 2 cups, as though waiting for us to reclaim a normal life. Then I closed the door behind me and took one last look before heading downstairs. In the living room, he sat on the couch, head in his hands. I paused at the bottom of the stairs. I'm going away for a while, I said. I'll stay with my sister upstate. He lifted his head, hope flickering in his eyes. Will you come back? I knelt in front of him, staring into the face of the man I once loved. I don't know, I admitted. I need to find myself again, outside of these broken promises. But I'll let you know when I'm ready. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I'll be here. I stood and walked to the door. Before I left, I placed a single letter on the coffee table, prototyped with my neat handwriting. Mark, I walked into 2 marriages because of your choices. I'm taking my life back one day at a time. I don't know where this path leads, but it begins for me now. Sarah. I paused, drawing a deep breath of a cool night air from the stoop. Then I turned the key in the lock and stepped out, suitcase in hand, into a future that was entirely, terrifyingly mine to shape. As I descended the stoop, the city hummed around me. Distant honks, a bus trundling by, hushed conversations on the sidewalk. In that hum, I felt a flicker of possibility. I might return to him someday, or I might forge an entirely new story. But I would never again let someone else write my narrative. Every step away from that door was a choice, toward honesty, toward self, toward the uncharted chapters that awaited me beyond his betrayals.